welcome back to Alone Together with the Dungeon Dive and Perplexing Runes. It's been a while. Alan, how's it going?
Really good, man. Really good. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, yeah, nice to see you. Thanks for reaching out. I know we haven't, we took about a month and a half off or so. I know.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
Let
Let's
things gestate.
exactly. Don't want to do a big show and tell every month. That's a lot of stuff to talk about. But but yeah, it's good to have you on. We'll do our basic kind of discussion on what we've been playing, what we've been reading and enjoying. And then I've got a couple main topics that we might go into. We'll see how that goes, see how the conversation takes us. Maybe talk a little bit about some science fiction versus fantasy gaming, because I've been kind of last month in May, I was focusing a little bit on science fiction stuff and kind of maybe tangentially off of that, bouncing off of popular games because I kind of bounced off Starforged and Ironsworn. And so
I saw that coverage. Yeah.
so maybe we can talk a little bit about that. But what's been occupying your hobby time lately? What have you been working on?
Uh, for work, I had a bunch of commissions to wrap up. So
Mm-hmm.
I was drawing most of last month. What was really fun about it, though, is like a different subject. It was for a mothership module about like blue collar fishermen.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's
Instead
fun.
of dungeon or space, I drew like a trawler and like a fisherman and just really different stuff.
Ooh, I
And
like
then,
that. That sounds cool.
yeah. And in the last year, I've really gotten into comic books lately too. Um, not Superman comics so much as kind of different kind of comics subjects, maybe space and sci-fi and things like that. And so I tried to draw more comic style with these. So it was really fun. I did a lot of flat colors and really pushed my drawing boundaries more than I have in a while. So that was really great.
Cool. What's that? What is that supplement going to be called?
Hoss,
Hoss?
Hoss by
HOHS. Cool.
Tim Obermueller. He's put out some really good stuff. So I did that for a little goal for the Kickstarter campaign of that. But it's just really neat because, this is what I like about Mothership's community. Nothing really looks the same. Like you can always tell like a Morkborg product, but Mothership has so much weird
They don't have
shit.
like a kind of a overall kind of governing aesthetic
They
type
do
thing.
not. They don't have a
Yeah.
color scheme or a font scheme. So people just make whatever.
Uh-huh.
And that's one thing I quite appreciate about the Mothership community. Not that Morkborg's not a super prolific creative either, but I just like that. So it's fun to work on something completely like almost asymmetrical to like gaming.
Yeah, a little more freedom as far as like, I mean, even though there's a lot of freedom in the design of Morkborg, you
Oh,
do
totally.
you do kind of want to, if you are designing something for Morkborg, you kind of want to keep it yellow, pink,
I think that's what it is.
scrawly and bold. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then people kind of go crazy within those
Yeah.
confines, which is its own trick and difficulty, I think.
Yeah.
How to set it apart. And then aside from that, because I haven't had a ton of time from various house problems and things like that, I've worked on a new little pocket mod game called Oracle.
Oh,
And it's
cool.
like a mini hack of Black Sword hack and some aspects of Morkborg, but more Black Sword hack. But so, and then I spent all week writing an adventure one to go with it. So those are going to come out. Free time.
Yep.
Down notes.
Black Sword
And
Hack is pretty cool. I've started reading it, and
it's cool.
it seems
Man.
like a neat system, and it does have some good solo rules in the back.
It does.
And it's yeah, I
Between
like
its,
the look of it so far.
between its art, I think Goran Gligovic is tops, for art making. And then the system's real easy, D20 under, but it's super heavy on world and
Yeah,
ambiance. I mean, you roll these origin and backgrounds, and they fill out all this world stuff for you.
yeah, a lot of good charts, a lot of good
Yeah,
generators and stuff.
and
Yeah,
it's neat that it's like it's in between vanilla fantasy and like maybe a Morkborg, where it's like the sword and sorcery, dark, weird, chaotic. I think it's Elric sort of inspired.
yeah. Looking at it, just looking at the art. If I just saw some of the art, I would place it in more of a of a dying Earth style fantasy where it almost seems like a future fantasy kind of
And I
vibe
think
to it.
art and some of the magic and stuff is almost psychedelic too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it
yeah,
has
yeah.
that vibe. I made a map for it. I was getting ready to do a solo with it, and then things on my house went wrong,
Yep.
and I wasn't able to really sit down and game a whole lot. But that's the next game I'm going to try and sit down and like play a full blown. I'm gonna actually use Iron Sworn theme cards and stuff
Hmm.
because I think they actually fit that vibe a little bit,
Yeah.
and I'd like it to be kind of an Arctic sword and sorcery instead of sand and mountains.
Yeah, right, right. That'll be cool. Yeah, it does have a pretty good bestiary too, I think, in the book.
Totally does, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and kind of different and weird.
yeah.
So that's by the Merry Mushmen, who did Knock magazine. Did
Knock.
you get this?
I never got Knock, but I know Knock. Yeah, and I don't.
No, Knock is pretty amazing.
And they're very expensive now. I know that. So
Are they?
I think so. I think if I'm thinking of the right ones, so I've kind of just pushed them out of my mind.
Yeah, they're really cool, but it's by a guy named Kobayashi who also did the original Black Sword Hack and some other stuff. So um so much good stuff. But that's kind of all I've been up to. And then I have one last show and tell, and then I'm gonna let you kind of do your thing for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're talking about weird and psychedelic. There's this creative named JamZilla. And they wrote a game called Sis.
Oh, I have that on the shelf back there.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love this book.
it's
So
kind of cool, huh?
I went and got the whole shebang of them. All of
Yeah,
the
so I
zines.
have, I think there's one more that you showed in there that I have. Are those all connected? Yes, that's the one I have. The Lords of Bile Deep. I've got that and Cyst.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't think they're necessarily connected. They're like adventures
Yeah.
and world building. And it's weird because the system's like flip a coin.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I was like,
which-
oh, cool. That's kind of neat.
It's cool. I tend to like a little more than good luck like that. But the creativity and the execution of the collage, I don't know.
Yeah.
I keep telling everybody, go check out the system because I'm really taken with it. Like I just flip through them and read all the weirdness in them. And they kind of have a weird psychedelic sorcery kind
Yeah.
of vibe.
Really, really cool vibe. Definitely.
And then I ended up getting a bunch of like broadsheets with it. So I'll just show the one that are just lore and stuff. And this Sis bundle is one of the most inspiring things I've gotten recently.
Is that a new bundle that they put together?
No, I reached out to them and I was like, I'd like all of your stuff. I really like Sis. I bought it on spec just because it looked neat and it was
Yeah.
affordable. And I communicated with the creator, very cool person, and we made an arrangement. But it's like all
Nice.
this stuff. It's so good. I keep telling people it's really a neat. It feels so different aesthetically and creatively. I like it. And
Yeah.
so that's the one thing I've really been kicking around lately.
No, I know you recently put together a bundle of Fallen.
That's by
Oh,
JamZilla.
JamZilla. JamZilla.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. My friend
Or so. Yeah.
is
So who is that through?
the Lost Bay Studio,
Lost Bay Studio.
which is by Eco. That's his sort of moniker. Yeah, he's carrying it in Europe for me. So there's
Cool.
pre-orders now, and you get both books, all 3 decks, the campaign notebook.
And the campaign notebook's is it a smaller size campaign notebook or is it the
No.
same size?
It's the 8.5 by 11.
Okay,
I think
okay.
he's reformatting it to something more European appropriate. But yeah, it's kind of exciting because after the Kickstarter, I never made it available.
Yeah, that's cool.
I get people asking me, when will this be here? So now it's in Canada and will be in Europe soon.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
I
excited.
was happy for you to see that. Just
so
poking
much.
around the internet, finding a new Fallen bundle is cool because
Yeah, I
even
need
though
to make new Fallen stuff. It's just I've been really busy.
yeah, the nice thing about Fallen for people who maybe can't find a hard copy is it's a very easy book to print, especially it's mostly just black and white, isn't it? Yeah,
Yep.
so it doesn't take a lot of ink to print, and my first copy before you sent me one was just a home printed one, and it worked fine.
On my itch page, I actually have Fallen and Hillgrab and a bunch of sheets and maps all in one, the solo card. So for $10 you can buy both
Oh,
books.
are you including PDF of the cards now as well?
Not the solo card,
Oh, yeah. The Oracle sheet. Yeah, which I think
not
is a
the playing
fantastic. I love that
cards.
Oracle sheet. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That Oracle sheet is awesome.
It was a lot inspired by Alfred Valley, who's one of the prominent solo game writers.
Hmm.
You should check him out. He wrote Lay on Hands, that solo zine.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah. So if you don't want to pay shipping, Fallen's $10. You get all the stuffs, and all the pamphlets are all pretty affordable.
Yeah.
Too. So anyway, yeah, it's really exciting.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
It's always nice to see something that you've done kind of go back and print and can reach a new sector, a new segment of the audience. And
One thing about Fallen is I've been trying to do it so like I want to give it a longer life. So
yep.
So I would like it to keep growing, and
that's one thing we talked about on our last discussion is creating that kind of longer tail for a game and keeping it in the zeitgeist for longer, and
and letting it grow organically. And then if I can put out a 2E with all the feedback I've been getting, it'll be a better book and stuff. So what about you, man? What do you have going on?
One thing I was going to show, I recently got a bundle that I haven't actually taken a look at real in depth yet, but it's the Fear bundle.
That's by the Lost Space Studio.
From Lost Space Studio. Yeah. So this recently came in, and this is a bunch of stuff for Liminal Horror and other indie horror RPGs. So there's some cool stuff in here, some neat little adventures, and some modules and pamphlets and that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to cracking into that and playing some Liminal Horror.
That's a great book.
Yeah, it's fun. It's got some good stuff in there. I think when I first looked at Liminal Horror, I thought it was a little light on some of the things that I would look for, like as far as like generators go. And I don't have a lot of horror charts and things to roll up on, so I'm hoping that some of the stuff in here kind of fills in some of the gaps that I was looking for.
Liminal Horror is kind of like Call of Cthulhu without all the mechanics and Lovecraft baggage.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I think there's a group of people who are looking for that specifically right now.
Yeah.
I know Tiny D6 Cthulhu is.
I just got that in the mail.
People are talking a little bit about that right now, and yeah.
I think Eldritch and Lovecraftian, for lack of a better term, is super influential. But
there are
like dungeon crawlers you can pick from 1,000 games, but
Liminal
Horror filled this great niche where you can play like 1990s investigators.
Yeah. I always call it like more. I always try to get away from Lovecraftian and just say mythos based, because
right on.
As I'm always talking to people and telling people, it's like Lovecraft was such a small part of the mythos. Like, yes, he did a lot to create it, but he was building upon a generation of authors before him.
Dunsany, right?
Dunsany and
I'm not
what's his name? The
Algernon Blackwood, maybe?
Blackwood, a little bit of a Merritt, Ambrose Bierce, that's the guy I was trying to think of. Robert W. Chambers, they all influenced Lovecraft, and then Lovecraft came and he influenced other people. But now there's been decades of people who have run with it. So it's the mythos is so much bigger than Lovecraft, but people always go back to Lovecraft. But
I don't know enough about that. That'd make an interesting study. I'm sure somebody has done it. Like, why is he the linchpin or whatever, for all that? But
he kind of just took it all and maybe solidified it into the thing, right?
Could be, yeah. I would really love to read Clark Ashton Smith. Actually, I hear his stories are pretty powerful.
I have a love-hate relationship with Smith. I think he's incredibly talented, but his stories often leave me feeling a little underwhelmed. I have not read his more fantasy based stuff yet, and I recently got a really nice collection of all of his more fantasy, more kind of sword and sorcery style books. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. But I've read a handful of collections from him, and in each collection, I really like maybe two stories.
That's not great. Right.
But that's me though.
Sure.
I think I'm in a real small minority on how I feel about Clark Ashton Smith. Most people love him, and I always feel like I'm supposed to love him.
Uh,
And I just can't get there with him. So hopefully these more fantasy based stories, we'll see. We'll see if that's what kind of like gets me into the vibe.
Nothing like a beloved author peer pressure.
Exactly. I know I'm supposed to love Clark Ashton Smith and I should love him. So I keep giving him these chances.
Well,
Um,
to wrap that back to it, though, I think Liminal Horror, it would be neat. I mean, they've put out some cool adventures for it,
yeah.
and they kind of strike me as sort of mothership approach, like the way they're formatted and things. But it'd be cool if somebody came out with just a badass generator book of deliberately not Cthulhu, but sort of mythos generating,
Yeah.
you know? And Silent Legion by Kevin Crawford's pretty cool if you haven't seen that.
No, but I love Kevin Crawford though. So
So his book, one of his early ones, is that, and it's got a boatload of like tables and stuff.
uh-huh. Yeah, he makes really good generator stuff.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does. He might that book might be worth grabbing the PDF and just printing out those tables,
Just the tables. Yeah. Yeah.
or the Solo Investigator's Handbook. But that again is dated a little bit.
Yeah, that's a lot. There's a lot in that Solo Investigator's Handbook. It's huge.
Kind of the main tool, I think, for
Mhm.
for that. So yeah, that's kind of. What about anything else?
Let's see. One thing that just came in, I was hoping this would come in last month so I could feature it in the sci-fi stuff, but I just did get One Breath Left.
Yeah,
So
that's unique.
this is a little box set game that deals with exploring a ship like a dungeon, and so you have a bunch of dungeon ship cards like corridors and different rooms,
Like D100 Dungeon
almost like
time.
D100 Dungeon, yeah. And it comes with
Oh,
a few cards like for items. Get
oh
so
wow.
like different items and stuff that you can get.
Is
But
it a solo game
it's a
specifically?
solo game. Yeah, it's a solo game about exploring a spaceship, and you have three manuals. You have your operations manual, that's like kind of like your rules, and then you do have a navigation guide and a explorer's handbook. And the navigation guide kind of walks you through the different tiles, like what each tile can do,
Huh.
and it'll give you little events. And it is kind of a journaling game, so you do need to write a little bit. Dropped a card there. And I know some people go back and forth with journaling games. Some people like them, some people don't. As far as journaling games go, I usually keep a really light journal. Like I don't get into, I keep just enough to give me the theme, a couple sentences here or there. Some people will get really into it and write pages and pages. I've seen some people's journals that are like, they're almost novellas.
Right.
They write dozens of pages, and that's a little bit too much for me. Like I don't appreciate doing that, but I know some people do. So I think some people might think that in order to enjoy a journaling game, you need to enjoy writing, and I don't think that's necessarily true because I don't write a lot in my journaling games. It's very bare bones.
So kind of what do you get out of a journaling game versus a sort of dice chucker solo RPG? I'm curious because I don't play a lot of journaling games proper. Just curious.
I think the journaling aspect is usually in lieu of hard set mechanisms to where the game will give you a choice. And instead of the choice having to do with rolling and then making a decision that is a mechanical decision in the game, the choice is in how you develop your story. So because you're given a prompt, like you walk
Right.
into this room there's a computer. Do you want to use the computer or not? And in some games, there might be a more mechanical solution to where you would take a stat or skill and roll and see if you can manipulate the computer, see if you can log in or hack or something like that. Whereas thinking in a journaling game, maybe it lacks those mechanisms a little bit. So it just gives you the prompt in order to kind of come up with your story of like what your character does at the computer. And you
So
don't
it
need
just
to
kind of like choose your own adventure light.
kind of, yeah. But
Mhm.
you are coming up with the prompts on the page. You are reacting to the prompts. It'll give you a choice, but you have to come up with the story,
Right.
what
Kind of a
happens.
different, relaxing headspace, maybe.
It's more relaxing. Yeah. Yeah. It's a different, I think it scratches a different itch. Maybe it's a little more creative writing than game playing, but One
Mhm.
Breath Left seems to be a pretty good marriage of gameplay and journaling. So
Nice.
I'm interested in diving into that.
Well,
And
those components are cool.
they're really nice. And I love little boxes like this that just have a kind of a complete world in a box. I
One
think
of my
you know.
favorite sort of genres of board gaming is small box games.
Oh, I
Like,
know. Yeah.
instead of the big honker game, how much can you get in two decks of cards and
Yep.
some
I
meat?
love. I mean, yeah. I just finished a video. I was playing Iron Helm this week.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
read a new campaign's coming soon for that.
Yep, a new deck of dungeon cards, so that'll add some cool variety. And I was just thinking of, comparing Iron Helm and Rogue Dungeon, which Rogue Dungeon is on Kickstarter right now, and it's not. I don't think it's going to hit its
So
funding.
I'm
I'm bummed.
sitting on that, and I don't know. Like you've talked so highly of it that I think I need to, but I don't know.
I love it. Yeah, I love the
Yeah.
game so much, but I don't know.
Will the art get adjusted, you think, more?
Some of it I think is going to get adjusted. They said it does need kind of a more modern look. I think if it had a more modern aesthetic, people
Yeah.
would get into it more.
Uh-huh.
But it's such a fun game. It's a lot different than Iron Helm. I mean, these two games really are at two ends of the spectrum.
Mm.
Rogue Dungeon, they're both roguelikes. You're trying to get through a dungeon without dying, managing some resources. Whereas Iron Helm follows Jason Glover's kind of his idea of always having a choice. Like the
Yeah.
players are choice. There's always this, that, or press your luck. I said in my video that if he ever made a game that wasn't thematic, he could just make a game called this, that, or press your luck, and it would be, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Or maybe do something that you don't know. And he's really good at that. And Rogue Dungeon is very similar. You're trying to get through a dungeon with managing some resources, but it's all luck. I mean, this
Mhm.
game is pure luck. And sometimes I want pure luck. Sometimes I want to make some choices, And so I'm glad that both of these games exist, and I'm glad that they're both in small boxes, and they both pack a ton of stuff, a ton of game, especially when you start adding the expansions for Iron Helm.
Well,
It's
there's so
just
many.
it's such a cool world, and just everything fits in here so nicely. And yeah,
And Tin Helm.
and Tin Helm fits in that box. So yeah, it's just like this whole. I love that whole box of Iron Helm. It's
Right.
such a fun thing to pull out and set up
You
and
have the chest
experience.
he put out. Didn't he put out like a chest, Iron Helm chest, or
Yes,
does
yep.
that fit in there?
It fits in there too. Yeah, all the little modules. Yeah.
He's smart like that. He's
Oh,
such
he
a
is so
great.
smart. Yeah, and when he thinks of a design, he thinks about the box and the size
Yeah.
and everything that can fit in to that small box. That's part of his
If only
design.
bigger designers thought that way.
Oh God, I know. I
It's so
know.
wasteful.
Or think about.
Speaking of,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
well, I got League of Dungeoneers recently. I'm really
Yep.
excited because it's my first big dungeon crawl, big box. And Michael
Yep,
Lundstedt,
Michael. Yep,
he did a great job with fitting
he
stuff.
did. It fit,
Like it closes nicely, and it's a chunky box. There's no other way to put it, but the amount of content you get in there
it's
is
incredible. It's insane.
ridiculous. And he's doing another one soon, and I saw you cover the expansion, so I'm gonna be all over those because I'm almost thinking about breaking open my Folklore Affliction and
Mhm.
cannibalizing it and adding all that to the League of Dungeoneers. Like
Oh yeah, if you took
Cards, the
your
maps,
maps, the
standees.
skirmish
Yeah.
maps and stuff, and the standees. Oh yeah, yeah, you could
Just
have
have
a
a
whole.
giant dungeon box with a beautiful map.
Yep,
And
I those specific map boards in folklore are some of my favorite board game components.
yeah, but
They're
the
so
game's not appealing to me.
too much crunch, man. It's
For me, it is.
rolling
So
a high D100 system is not my favorite system. I like a roll low on a D100 usually, but
yeah,
with folklore, when you're starting off and you're adding plus ones or plus twos to your D100 rolls, it's like, why am I even
weird.
using this sword? It's not
Right.
doing it's not doing anything.
I
It's
know.
unfortunate. Yeah, yeah,
I think League seems to have streamlined a lot of that
yeah.
stuff. And then, but folklore has some awesome packaging art
Oh,
components.
totally.
So
Yeah,
I'm thinking about just taking them all out and adding them to my big Dungeoneers
yeah. Might as well,
kit
right?
as well. I'm actually waiting on instead of doing more card games, I went in on Dark Venture, so I'm uh I'm kind of holding off and just hoping that'll be my card based dungeon crawl weird big game
Yeah.
because that's got a ton of content in it.
It does
Uh,
now, especially with whatever Rob's been adding to the
oh,
to the new one with like a dungeon crawl mode and an
oh man,
arena mode and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
he's great with updates on his Kickstarter.
Yeah,
And
yeah. He's such a cool guy. I like Rob a lot.
more stuff. This guy draws. I want an art book of that guy's
Oh, I
stuff.
know. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah,
I would
big,
buy that in
nice
a
coffee
heartbeat.
table art book. Yeah, that would be so cool.
I know. I was talking to an artist in our scene recently, and I was like, "When will you put out an art book? Because I would buy it." They were like, "Yeah, nobody wants those." I was like, "I
What?
do."
Who
So
doesn't want an art book?
I don't. I don't know.
Man, an indie tabletop RPG art book would be awesome with all kinds of cool art from like you and all the and Glover and Rob Lemon and all of the different
So many.
designers
Yeah.
and stuff would
And
be.
if I go into publishing, that's what I want to make.
I'll write the forward.
Please do. I mean, right? There's such good talent out there. It's
Yeah.
insane. Uh,
Speaking of you, I did pick up your pamphlet,
oh,
your little adventure for Isle of Ix,
thanks, man.
the Pit of Acid Mist. Yeah, I just picked that up a few days ago. It just came in last week.
Is that
Uh,
appropriately pulpy?
Yeah, yeah, this is cool. This is really cool. So Isle of Ix, I think we've talked about Isle of Ix before, but
Yeah.
that's kind
I
of
hope
this little kind
it's
of
so good.
little adventure. It says a nice little standalone,
Yeah.
very simple rules for an RPG and a cool little setting.
Just
And
an
then
island survival gig.
yeah, and then this adds a nice little kind of a setting on top of it. But
I'm pretty proud of that book, man. The dungeon maps in there, people really liked those when I was posting them. Um, I finally tried to draw some isometric maps, so that was what those were all about.
yeah,
Um,
it's a cool little book. I did want to mention one other thing. Kind of a combination of items that I'm looking forward to playing. This is going to be my next kind of solo RPG thing, and that is using Harper's Quest
oh,
2.
by Joy Pedler.
Yep.
Yeah.
Along with procedures to discover the path ahead. Have you seen
Yeah,
this
yeah. That's a great
from
book.
Seeding Games? This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like for overland crawling and for if
It's
you
got all
want to
these like trips and triggers and stuff.
yeah, if you want to connect your dungeon adventures in another kind of tabletop RPG game, this the procedures to discover the path ahead just gives you all. I'm having a really hard time with lighting
I
today.
love that art. Is that Thomas Novosel, I think, did that drawing? I love the art on the front.
Do they have?
Oh, it's
I haven't looked at the art credits yet, so I'm not sure.
Tom.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a
this
great
book
book.
is awesome. It has so you kind of start off in a settlement, and the further you go out from your settlement, kind of the more dangerous things get. And it's got all of your generators for building your settlement, what kind of settlement is, what its kind of economy is. And then as you go out on the road, different NPCs that you meet on the road, And then as your journey goes, depending on how far you are journeying away from your starting settlement, you have different kinds of overland charts that you roll on. And yeah, just using that to be the overland part of the game, and then the Harper's Quest 2 to be the adventure part of the game, the dungeon crawl and the combat and stuff. And I think these two would make a really good combo.
Joey Pedler, Harper's Quest, he worked on Fallen for me. He wrote the solo module for Fallen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then he has a really cool hex crawl about being a fox in the wilderness and surviving as a fox. So he's written several solo games now. Super creative. Also does some cool like terrain building stuff, and has a YouTube channel.
I'll have to check that out. I'll post a link in the description here. Yeah.
I don't know how active he is on there, but he's got some cool stuff on there. Yeah, I was really grateful because he took the solo module for Fallen and gave people a neat way of sort of entering into the system.
What was the thing he did for Fallen?
The Whispering Woods, is that what it was?
I don't think
he wrote the solo module.
Huh, I don't think I've seen that. I'll have to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Pretty
sure
cool.
it's on itch. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that sounds cool. That's something for fall, something to look forward to.
So science fiction, man, I've got some cool stuff. I'm going to do a quick little show and tell because
yeah. So last May or in May, I did focus a little bit on science fiction gaming because I feel like I don't know if it's just something that is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy for me, kind of a confirmation bias, but I feel like there is a lot more fantasy stuff than there is science fiction stuff. And I just happen to have a lot more fantasy stuff than I do science fiction stuff, as far as, decks of cards or oracles, generators, that kind of thing. So I always find it a little difficult to get into science fiction gaming. So that's kind of maybe something to talk about. So what do you have to show? Like what?
So I agree with you. And I think it's because dungeon crawling is such a universal, simple thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Walk through a room, fight a monster, or find treasure.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking of is fantasy seems to be more narrowly focused, even though anything can happen in a fantasy world, right? But space is so big.
Right.
It's like, it's crazy. It's almost overwhelming to think about adventuring in space, because how do you fill up space?
You know, the irony, though, is there's so much better film, TV media for sci-fi.
Yep.
100%. I can't wait until there's a Star Wars for fantasy.
Yeah.
Like 70s Star Wars. I'm not into the D&D movies at all. I want somebody to create like, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
The
Witcher,
totally.
but not The Witcher.
Yeah.
But there isn't that. But science fiction, like we have the Star Treks. So venture and encounter a species or a world and solve a problem until next week.
Mm-hmm.
Or Star Wars, where it's basically like Conan in space.
It's space fantasy. Yeah, Star Wars is space fantasy. Yeah.
But I think what happened was Mothership came out, and those core rules were free because there had been Traveler, and a lot of people love Traveler still.
Yep.
That was kind of it. I see Pathfinder, but not too much Starfinder. Then Mothership comes out, and they blew it up. When I got into the scene, it was like Mothership, and the core rules were free, and and it's a testament because their second Kickstarter that just happened raised insane amounts because people loved it. So I've got some good stuff, and I'm going to show it because now Glide. I know you've been doing this one, so I'm not going to really talk about that.
Glide is cool. Glide is almost science fantasy. It's almost like if Miyazaki or Studio Ghibli did a science fiction. It's kind of ecological science fiction, but cool.
Kind of Dune, but without all the politics, right?
Or smaller politics. The politics is on a smaller scale, I think. Because Glide does have some of those like guilds.
Yeah.
That are kind of competing against resources and that kind of thing.
This is like a lot's in this book, and there's supplements. There's the smuggling, and he just came out with another supplement for it.
Mm-hmm.
The glide, you've covered that though. This I'm dying to play, but I don't have any minis. I don't have any pawns. I don't have any tokens.
See,
So
we have stuff for fantasy, but
right.
not 5 parsecs from home. Yeah.
I discovered a person on drive-through that makes really nice looking paper terrain.
Mm-hmm.
You just print on cardstock, cut and tape. So I might go that route, or the Starfinder pawns look like they could work for this, because this
yeah. Mm-hmm.
5 league series looks amazing. I always fall short because I don't have the physical parts to really click with it yet.
Yeah, I didn't know. I guess I just didn't know that Starfinder, because I have a bunch of the Pathfinder pawns and I love those. But yeah, Starfinder
There
pawns
just as many Starfinder
well.
pawns. So
Nice.
And then the Glide Smugglers expansion. But here's ones I wanted to really quick. You did Notorious, so I'm not going to go there. But I started a little bit of a campaign, and these are the tools I'm using.
Okay.
So my game that I'm playing, I think this might be my favorite science fiction book. Monolith by Adam Hensley. This is a Cairn hack. It's free on itch, or you can get it from Lulu at cost. This is like $8. This is 90 pages, 3 stats, D20 under, but you get to roll cool like backgrounds on it. There's D12 backgrounds. And I did some of that, so I'll share what that yielded. Starship, psionics, magic, tech, augmentations. This is like
really cool.
The book, I think.
Now,
for $8.
Does it have any solo rules built in, or are you adding them?
No. So one of the troubles, and I've been talking to my friend Brandon about this, is with Cairn and solo. I find it a little difficult. Because you're tracking monster's strength as it diminishes. And there are no bestiary to speak of, really. 5 creatures in all the Cairn books. So it is kind of doing your own soloing.
Yeah.
But I talked to Yochai Gal, who wrote Cairn, and I was like, look, I'm going to just not do the strength score. When monsters hit 0, they're done. Kind of thing. Unless it's a mini boss. Then you give them that extra buffer. But this book has so much, and I'm going to show you what happened to that real quick. But then I'm using Diogo Nogueira's Screams from Amongst the Stars, also an Into the Odd hack. This, like all of Diogo's books, is packed with world tables. I mean, this is so good. Spicy Tuna kickstarted the Planet Builder.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Hairless Wild, basically.
And generating cool planets and stuff. Yeah, that's awesome.
And then here's the one that's the humdinger, though. Michael Raston's Stardogs. Have you seen that?
Cool, no, that's a cool cover, though.
Cover really rules.
Cool. Yeah.
So it comes in 2. Player's Guide, which is essentially D20 D&D. I don't really use the Player's Handbook. This, however, gives Kevin Crawford a run for his money on tables.
Really? Wow.
Hands down. Might even be better. Just because of the sheer volume. 60 pages of sci-fi tables, including geomorphs, species, everything you could want.
And do you find it pretty easy to adapt to just kind of any system that you would want to? Just totally neutral? Nice.
This to me is, if you want to play for affordably, I think I got this on Lulu also. This to me, the Stardogs Referee's Handbook, is a must-have in the library.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Who did that cover? Do you know offhand?
Gosh, it rules, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a really cool cover.
Matthew Adams. Cover and interior art. And Michael Adams is really great. He does some cool, innovative. Infinigrad. He writes really neat stuff. But this book. So let me show you real quick how it played out for me.
Yeah. A little campaign recap.
Real quickly, yeah.
Yeah. So what was your character?
So using Monolith, but using I rolled up Gaston LeBlanc and Alawolf Bancroft. And what's really great about these guys is basically I rolled up Han Solo and like his Chewbacca, but he's a scientist. So
Okay.
he's a
Yeah.
human, but so what happened though, by using the tables in that book, I ended up with this guy who's got, because you roll, he's a smuggler with stylish outfit. So he's basically Han Solo with a blaster and a small laser knife. But his starship is impounded. He recently did jail time. And so the way it ended up happening through various tables, basically, and they live on a smuggling outlaw planet. So, and he's in debt to essentially Jabba the Hutt. And I owe 10,000 credits, which I have to run contraband. And all this just came from character generation. So I have a whole hook, whole story. My other guy, Bancroft, is a scientist who quit through malaise, but he developed a temporal bomb. And he wants to be tough. So he took on the human shield traits. So I now have these two guys who are smuggling oddballs. And my first adventure is going to be breaking my starship out of the impound. So it's going to be a planet-side dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
Basically.
Going in, getting your ship, and then blasting your way out.
Blast my way out. And then I need to decide through role play, do I pay off Mama Sook and my $10,000 credits, or do I go on the run? So that all happened with just rolling two characters. And then this is using Michael's Stardogs to generate my galaxy.
So is that your sector? Is that your sector that you'll be? So you have planets there with like some orbit things going around.
I dropped a D6 and got a 3. So then you drop 3 random dice. It's like a D4, D9, D10, and I don't know, D6 again. And then you create the rings. And then he's got all these tables for generating it. So I ended up with a home sector. And then because Monolith uses hex travel with all its starship rules, I then converted to this, which has the 3 planets from the other sheet and my home planet.
In your home planet, yeah. How
So
did you determine how far away the planets are from each other? Just randomly?
I went online and found a really cool Starship hex map generator where you can create the size. And I created this as 12 by 12. I rolled a D12 twice for one planet.
Yep.
So 10-1. And then I got 9-1, 10-3, and 1-6.
Yep.
So I plotted them on a 12 by 12. And I ended up on a planet Asher Minor under the star Asariel. It's freezing tundra wastelands, shifting glaciers, an outlaw city, sprawling underground massive city. I mean, all that just in generation. And I decided to take the approach from Geek Gamers more, where she really goes for world building first.
Yeah.
Help prompt what you're gonna do.
Right.
It was really helpful because you can just roll characters, but then they kind of fall flat. But if you have a world and then roll a character, your mind already starts plugging them in. And so now I've got these outlaws that are going to try and break out of Hoth, I guess, with their starship. And of course, I'm bringing, my knowledge of Star Wars and Trek as I'm doing this. I'm really excited because I don't play a lot of science fiction either. And
yeah, it's a different, it can use, it's weird. It can use a different part of your brain, even though what we think of as science fiction is often just fantasy in space, because we're not approaching science fiction as a hard science fiction.
It's not Arthur Clarke.
No, we're not worried about hyperspace and how are you going to navigate. It's very much adventures in space, but it still feels, when you're playing it, it still feels different.
Well, because you have a ship and a blaster.
Yeah. Now, do you think of the ship? So I was, what I like about a ship is it's kind of like a home base. Right?
It's your lair, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I rolled up the Indomitable Dream. Has 2 shield, 13 hull, so it gets stats like Cairn. Hull, engine systems, armor. You get movement and mobility rates. So the movement's how many hexes you can move. mobility is turning. So every mobility takes 1 movement, and my ship can turn 2 per round. It gets a number of holds, and then Monolith has all these tables how you can upgrade your ships. You can buy new cannons and all this good shit. And it's all pretty expensive, so you have to work really hard.
You have to work hard on it.
Yeah.
Now, are you going for? So one thing we talked about was how a sector, a star sector, and you're thinking in 3D space, right? When you're worried about fantasy, you're usually kind of thinking more of a flat plane. You're thinking of a mountain or plains or in a dungeon with a floor. But space, you're having to kind of think in terms of cubic of volume, because you can go up and down, left and right, this in and out. And so are you approaching your sector? Are you saying that your sector is a very full sector, that it's full of life, there's an abundance of things, or is it a desolate sector where you have to travel a long ways to get to places?
So what's brilliant in Stardogs, how I generated the original map. So I got 3 rings, 3 orbit rings, and on each orbit ring, you roll on his table here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a D4, empty, planet, space station, or an encounter. So I ended up with an empty, and a planet. So where my outlaw planet narratively now is a cold fringe.
It's desolate. It's out there.
Desolate.
Yeah.
It originally became inhabited because of hot springs that were there. And now I'm narratively, it was overrun by these outlaws who commodified this. And basically I'm thinking Wild West America, all these towns in Dakota named Springs, right? And your brain kind of fills that in. I am doing like a hex crawl though. Now, what I like about space, and I had thought of this, in fantasy, you're generating every damn hex.
Yep.
Terrain, weather. Here I'm just flying. So I'll roll 1 dice. If there's an encounter, yes or no. Otherwise, it's just empty space. And I feel like sometimes fantasy solo can bog you down because you're generating
a lot of detail on every time.
Everything. And sometimes that's fun. But sometimes it slows you down. Here it's flying from here to here. Encounter, no, land. And the rest is black space.
Yeah.
And I think that actually might be really fun, like point to point versus, in fantasy, everybody wants to roll up the features and did they find a tree or a mountain and bring the world to life? And that can get kind of tough with minutia sometimes if you don't have a way to propel forward.
Yeah, I guess space, you could approach it more like a point crawl where you are only concerned with the major discoveries.
The planets, the asteroids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Jim Parkin wrote a game called Any Planet is Earth, I think. And it's a hack of Traveler, but he wrote 2 pages of maze rats like space table.
It's a bunch of tables. Yeah.
So I've got all these great little generators, and then I'm going to experiment with this. Somebody posted this online.
The DA, the plot engine tracker.
So it's a streamlined mythic.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So you have your different steps that you go through. Yeah.
It's not the fate chart. It's just narrative propelling. So yeah, man, I'm excited because I don't.
That sounds cool.
And I'm kind of in the mind now that I'm gonna play like Smuggler. I'm gonna play Star Wars, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But anyway, going back to the beginning, this.
Yeah, Stardog sounds great.
And Monolith together.
Yeah, those 2 should be a really cool package, huh?
I think the grand total is $15 with shipping.
For both, yeah, that's perfect.
So that's where I'm at sci-fi. Your turn.
I'm going to grab my Space Aces real quick. All right. So I just did a video on Space Aces. And this was my favorite thing that I played last month, as far as science fiction goes. And I had an absolute blast with this. I used just this, which is 28 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 28 pages, little pamphlet, little zine. I just used this, and I did end up using the Star Forged Assets book, which
Okay.
um, some people have noticed that I kind of bounced off of Starforged. I thought Starforged it was a little bit too much for me. Uh, I like the system that Sean has developed with Starforged and Ironsworn. I like the move, or I guess it's based off of the I can't remember. I'll put Powered by the Apocalypse engine. Yeah. So I like those moves. I like those ideas, but I like them in other games more. Like I
Hmm.
liked how um, they were used in Solitary Defilement a little more because they kind of boiled down all of the moves to just a few. And I just kept getting bogged down with the progress trackers and all of the stuff in Starforged. I felt like if I wasn't using the right thing, that it was impeding my mechanical progress towards the end of my adventure. But the assets book is really nice. It has a whole bunch of great charts that you can roll up for rolling up your planets and all of that. And this book, Space Aces, the new guidebook, is just fantastic. This thing is so cool. It's a super rules light system. All of the main rules for the game fit on your character sheet. So
Do you remember where you got that? The physical?
I got this. So I bought the PDF years ago and I was having trouble printing it. And I posted I was having trouble printing it on Drive Through RPG. And the designer said, "Hey, contact me and I'll send you a physical." So
Okay.
he might still have physicals left.
I had the
Uh,
original book. This
yeah.
is a new printing.
Now, a brand new book is coming out. He's working on a huge expansion slash standalone game that's going I can't remember what it's called. It's called Space Aces something, but instead of 28 pages of charts and generators, it's going to be, I think, 120 pages of charts and generators.
Will we need that book? Do you know? The core?
No, it should be it's going to be a standalone thing. So I'm really looking forward to that because I found this book to be so much fun, and it had everything. And like you, I made a couple characters, and they were called Sam Foyle and Angela and Tella, and they were a husband and wife team who were out adventuring. And like the Space Aces, it's basically a gig economy in space. They're just taking jobs. You're taking Uber jobs or Lyft jobs or going, doing pickup and delivery jobs for different factions. And it's kind of one of those things. It's kind of one of my favorite kind of tropes in fiction is that idea of no good deed goes unpunished. So you're out there trying to do something good or trying to just make ends meet, and you end up getting into a whole bunch of trouble and having to fight your way or talk your way or punch your way out of trouble. And it's a really cool system, and it has tons of great charts about creating your mission. So it's very episodic. You take a mission, you go out, you do it,
Mhm.
and then you do another mission. It has good charts for generating events. It has a really simple kind of hexploration system for when you land on a planet and things you might find on a planet. It has ways to generate starships, ways to generate mechs. It's got a whole sector generation thing where you have your sector and
Uh-huh.
then you have a D6 and a D20. So that's where you roll up your random things and your charts for all of your random. It's just like this in 28 pages gave me so much more fun and more simple fun. I was just able to get into the game a lot quicker and have a lot more fun than I was with Starforged. And yeah, I really can't recommend this enough. It does have a really cool little MacGuffin generator.
Hmm.
And so you can roll up there's some icons that you can roll up to come up with there's a bigger version of the different icons, kind of like how you have that on the Fallen Solo
Yeah.
Oracle sheet. Yeah, I really like these kind of icon generators. I think they're really handy.
Like story cubes, but better.
Yeah. And I rolled up three of them and put them together to kind of come up with the thing I was looking for on my mission
Right.
and like what it did and that kind of stuff. But
It's
Yeah,
real simple D6 system, right?
it is
This,
it's a D20 and a D6. So your D20 is you're trying to hit a target number of either 5, 10, 15, or 20, and your D6 is a complication die. So on a 1 to 2, you suffer a cost. On a 3 to 4, standard outcome. On a 5 to 6, you gain a benefit.
Mhm.
What I really like is the combat in this game is super fast. It's super quick. Whoever has the high ground is doing the attacking. Whoever has the low ground is doing the defending. And when you gain a benefit, you gain the high ground. When you pay a cost, you're on the low ground. There are no hit points. You have a thing called gumption. So your characters don't really die, but they're taken out of the adventure if their gumption ever gets to 0. But gumption is also it's also emotional damage. It's getting insulted. You can lose a point of gumption. Anytime you roll a cost, you have to take a point of gumption. And then it also has a really cool chart at the bottom, or a progress chart at the bottom called the heat level.
Right.
And every time you roll a cost on your D6 on your complication die, the heat level goes up. And that heat level can generate certain things. So I have the 10, I drew a little square around. So I was like, so when the heat level reaches 10, I have to face some kind of twist in the story. So you can set little progress tracks like that. You can use the heat level as the target number. So as things get more dangerous, the target numbers
Goes up.
go up. You can use it's a really simple system where all of the components, all of the mechanisms work really well together, and it just generates really cool stories. And
I had the first edition of that. I'm not sure what changed with the new guidebook.
I think it's just more. I think it's just more. Yeah.
I struggled with the book's aesthetics a little bit. It's very counter to my.
It is. I like the goofy, kind of wacky sci-fi. So yeah.
So I struggled with that, but I think from what I recall, the game's designed so well that you don't have to work to do anything. He's written it in a way where, much like Starforged, where so first of all, I was going to say, I wonder if you would be better off if you had played Ironsworn first, like a full-blown campaign, and then Starforged, because I got Starforged in the mail, and it's chunky. I didn't even really want to read it.
It's so much. I know. It's like 400 pages almost.
I'm like, that's a lot for a single character. But nonetheless, I think Sean's also quite a gentleman and quite brilliant.
Yeah.
So I love his products. That book intimidated me. But it's like this game took some of that down to just a boiled down. Because I remember like it tripped everything. That's how I recall. Simple. You don't have to work. Yeah. One of the things I see when people play solo role playing is there's almost this struggle to generate everything. And it creates this almost like paralysis or heaviness, or you stall. And a game like Space Ace is just, it's almost like board game. It's all there for you, but it's all dice and paper, but you can just roll and go.
Yeah, like on your mission generator sheet. So you just roll up on some charts to generate your mission, and you have to set 3 steps to complete your mission. So when you think about your mission, well, what do you need to do to accomplish that? Think of 3 things, and those are your 3 points on your mission.
Right. And, which is like progress or vows in the Ironsworn system.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And it's also like when you play a board game, you draw a card and that's your mission. So it's there. Go to point B and do this and that. Whereas in more traditional solo playing, you're using like all these mythics and all these mechanisms to propel you. And if you don't find a smooth way to do it, it can be tedious.
I don't think in my session of this, why I played a whole mission, I don't think I used an oracle one time.
There you go.
It was just a nice, simple, flowing adventure that I never.
You think you'll keep going with it, like a weekly game?
Maybe not weekly, but this is definitely something that I'm going to return to. And the
Right on.
reason is because of the amount of fun I had for the effort I had to put in.
That's what it's about, right?
Yeah. And
One thing I'm learning.
I'm so looking forward to the big brother of this that he's working on, because
I hadn't
hopefully it
heard.
doesn't add complexity. Hopefully it just adds more stuff to generate random things, you know.
Where'd you? I don't even see that person anymore in social media. I didn't even realize they're working on that.
I
So
talked to him on Discord.
okay,
Yeah.
um, Porthos or something.
Porthos, yeah.
Right. I think I have like a family and other things, and I work, so I'm busy, and like that's why I'm creating this little pocket mod. Like I need almost nothing to play with. And I
Mm-hmm.
keep tweaking my solo sheets to be like this very condensed, that's all there. If I can have like 2 items at the table and some dice, that's all I really want to use.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I want to be quick with it. I almost want to, before I go to bed at night, be able to play if I can. Like just
Right.
It can get too big, and too big is hard, I think.
Yeah, somebody recently asked me, because I think one of my sub hobbies that I've developed, to this hobby is just reading and collecting Morkborg books. And
Right.
to me, I get as much fulfillment as I do just reading them and looking at the art and enjoying them as books as I do as games. And somebody recently asked me, how do you play with everything? Because there's so much, and I don't. Like, I'll pick 1 or 2 books and just use the stuff from 1 or 2 books in an adventure. There's no reason, just because you have it doesn't mean you have to use it.
Right. This is a good chance to actually do a quick shout out to Philip Reed, who created that box.
Philip Reed. And that guy,
Every week, something
he's
new.
got something, like some huge thing that's coming out like every freaking week.
And what's amazing is the products he creates lend themselves to what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
go grab the 100 rumors or the 100 monsters and just pick one, and that's who you fight this week. And
Yeah.
like he's created like a sense of modularity. And I don't know how he writes that much that often, but
Yeah. So for what my video just posted as we were recording this, but what we were talking about is Philip Reed's Box of Terrors.
right.
It's like the most Morkborgish thing ever. It's literally a box you buy to hold some of your Morkborg stuff, but inside it you have a cool bestiary, and you have a cool kind of a hex map
X-Brawl, so good.
bestiary on the bottom, and it comes
Love
with
it.
some poster adventures and stuff. But
Yeah.
that dude, I really want to talk to him. I really want to get him on the channel. Maybe I'll see if he wants to join us on a call sometime. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
He did those Outland encounter cards you recently showed.
I
too.
love those things. Those things are amazing. They're so
That's
good.
brilliant. He's
Yeah.
just like so prolific, and from what I can tell, super supportive too of other people, and just I don't know. I got that box in the mail this week, and I was like, oh, now I want to go play it. Just and that's kind of what we do, right? Like you create things that maybe they don't chuck dice, but they get somewhere in their head and they
Yeah.
get excited about it. Like you're saying, just reading them. Like now you're all of a sudden thinking about a weird fucked up sword that does some weird curse,
Yep.
and you don't even need to play that out sometimes. It's just there, like listening to a good album. It's almost like listening to a concept album, like you don't do anything except ingest it, and it alters your mind. And
Yeah.
I think some of the
It,
best game books do that.
yeah, internal play, is just as
Internal
important as external play. And internal play kind of scratches the gameplay itch, but it also scratches my need for story and for fiction.
So
It's
you did that video about going to the woods on an adventure.
yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that was fun. Now, what happens if you read like one of Philip's weird books and then do that?
Yeah.
Your
Right.
mind's sort of impregnated now with freakish ass Morkborg in the Northwest or
Yeah,
wherever
yeah.
woods, and that can do something for you. I think you called it like minor LARPing or something. I forget what you called it.
Yeah. It's like solo LARPing, or just, just going out and after you read something cool, when you take a walk and think about it, it's like
Right.
it can impact you in
That's
a
what the
cool way.
Sys book was doing to me. Like, I just kind of think about its visual aesthetic and some of the weird text and how it's presented. And I'm like, that's cool. That does it for me. I don't have to play Sys. I'm experiencing it,
Well,
and
yep,
it is what it is,
yep.
you know. Um, and I don't know, this sci-fi game that I'd like to play will probably be more play with dice and mechanics, but I'm gonna try to not get bogged down. Like, I might try and do it like episodically, like Space Aces Forces. Like, what's this conundrum we're in this week? Instead of having this epic connection with all the factions and politics, just
I am very strongly gravitating towards episodic play in all of
mhm.
my games. I think I like that kind of short story
Yeah,
mode of play,
right.
where anything could happen. Each story is a point on a line of this character's life, and who knows how much time is in between those two points. You could
Right.
always go back and start filling and do some flashback games of like filling in stuff that happens between two stories. You could jump ahead 20 years. You can come back. I think that's a fun way to
Because
approach
ultimately,
gaming.
what are the dice and mechanics are mostly rooted around combat,
Yep.
right?
Or
Or saves
conflict,
conflict, right?
like a direct conflict of some kind, right? Yeah.
Right. And if you're presented with a cliff, you could just play that out in your head. Like, we
Yeah.
climb down and scale down. And I think I can make it. I mean, lose one gear to get down successfully. I mean, I don't know. I'm definitely gotten less and less and less and less for myself, and I've come to love 2, 3, and 4 stats. Roll under works for me. I like that. No adding involved. The weapons I find do weird shit instead of just give me
A
bonuses.
bonus. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's why the game Bastards is pretty great
I
because
was going to ask you about that. I thought about that. I thought about bastards yesterday. I thought maybe I should add that to a topic because I see a lot of bastard stuff on itch right now, but
yeah,
I haven't really investigated it yet.
it's pretty great, man. I've written one book for it. I'm writing another for it. Um, It's very elegant. It's very simple. The rules are great. The creator, Micah, has created a vast bestiary for it now. Um, and I just think it allows for a lot of what we're talking about
Hmm.
because the mechanics get out of the way pretty quickly. And I think the more confident you become as any kind of gamer, you're more and more willing to throw out stuff and just wing it if you feel like that works too. And so you don't need 400 rules pages when you're like, yep, I pass.
Yeah,
And you get through,
exactly.
That's why I was a little hung up, with like Cairn and like how much did I want to manipulate one of the core rules with monsters and the hit protection versus strength. And I got a little unsure about that because that seems like a core rule, but ultimately with Monolith, I'm just gonna do it my way.
Yeah, well, speaking of bestiaries for Cairn, there's the big bestiary for Runecairn that Odin's
Yeah,
Beard is working on.
I
I
know.
I am so excited. I've been wanting to get Runecairn to the table, but
It's cool.
I'm waiting until that I crowdfunded that big bestiary, and
So Colin's awesome. I
yeah,
really
yeah,
appreciate
really
him.
nice guy.
You should do it. Have you interviewed him yet?
I have not, but we've talked about it.
Oh, you
Yeah,
should, because
yeah.
I backed the bestiary too, and the art rocks. And the problem with Cairn systems is the bestiaries are weak. Now, that being said, Yochai has a website with an awesome
Yes,
bestiary.
a big bestiary. Yeah.
Caveat there. I just happen to really dislike accessing digital. I mean, I should print it out maybe,
I
but
think I did print it out, but there's no art or anything really, right? It's all
yeah,
it's just text.
it's just like a SRD or something.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Don't quote me on that. But one thing I like in a bestiary as well is some lore, and there's a really cool. I have it handy. Yeah. Um, speaking of
Philip Reed.
Speaking of Philip Reed, is
Yeah, yeah.
the Calo's Book of Monsters from Philip Reed, and it was put out by Steve Jackson Games. So hey, even Steve Jackson Games is jumping on Morkborg, but this is a really cool bestiary because not only does it have all of your stats, but each
Yeah.
monster has at least 3 different ways to involve the heroes.
How about that?
And an
Hooks built right in.
encounter. Yeah, hooks for every single monster has at least 3 hooks built right in. So you could just turn to a monster, look at one of the hooks, and boom, you have a monster hunting adventure to go on with almost 0 effort.
Right. And
So
I
cool.
feel like I should
Yeah.
caveat my comment about the Cairn Bestiary. Like that website's actually really great. And I know Yohai does a lot of great work converting adventures.
Oh yeah.
And,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an awesome resource. I personally just wish there were a printed one. And
Well,
that's
it's huge too. It's like I think I
Yeah.
printed out. It was like 100 pages or something. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a ton of information there.
That's why I'm
sure.
excited about Runecairn's Bestiary
Yeah.
from Colin, because it feels more packaged in a way I want it to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Runecairn's really cool. It's I don't know. I appreciate Colin does a great job. He's a great creator. But man, there's so many good creators out there. So
Yep.
who
That's what we're
knows?
trying. That's what we're trying to do here is shine some light on some things, and
Yeah.
I'll make sure that there's links to everything that we talked about, so people can check that stuff out. If I was to encourage, for me, to encourage people to check out one thing from this episode, it would be Space Aces. So
Mhm.
I think from you, I'm definitely going to check out Monolith and Stardogs. I think I'll just go ahead and buy those right away off of Lulu.
I think
They sound really cool.
they are. I think they're worth it, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, that
All
was
right,
great.
Alan. Yep. Well, thanks for taking the time, and we will talk
Sure,
to
everyone.
everybody later.